flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 24 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and then Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the Quaker State 400 this past weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I know we were all in Atlanta this weekend, and I have to ask you, was the trip to Atlanta worth it?
Nice.
Was it worth it?
You beat me to the pun. Dang it. You know I was going there, but you beat me to the pun.
Stole the joke from you.
That was very punny of you. It was worth it. And
first time there for you, right?
Yes. Hotlanta, like nobody calls it Hotlanta anymore. But the trip went well. Only 1 or 2 little traffic jams on the way into town, but we made it down there with more than enough time to spare. Thanks to Justin Hughes, we were able to get some passes to go on the pre-race track area. I don't even know who was the concert.
Andy Grammer, which is
an extremely good artist, and this tells you I'm not much a country guy. First off, and you could tell I'm there for the race because we wandered our way down, got down to the infield area, went right around that stage. Heck with that stage. Went and found the pit box. I made a joke with Jonathan. I don't know if he got the joke or not, because we went and took a picture down by their pit box, and they were all the way at pit stall was I think 6 up that end of the track. And I made the joke. I said, so we had trouble finding the pit box, because usually he's got the pit box at the other end of pit road.
Oh, that's true.
That's true. He likes the pit box at the far end, at the beginning of pit road a lot of times, depending on the track and where they qualify to. I mean, if they get the pole, of course they're going to take stall 1, but I think that had more to do with trying to be grouped around other Fords in case they had some green flag pit stops. And we're wandering back down pit road, going toward the car, because we can get close enough to the car, and I posted TikTok with some pictures and video of the car. But on the way over there, guess who we run into? Our favorite spotter, Josh Williams. My wife and I are good enough. He was good enough to stop, take a picture.
Spotted the spotter.
Spotted the spotter. I thought that was a great way of putting it on Twitter. The spotter was spotted. He was having an exciting weekend, because he did spot the truck race on Saturday, and he got to spot the ARCA race on Friday, since he was there at Mid Ohio too. So they called anybody they can get their hands on, I guess, down there. And that was he traveled, I guess they fly him back out of Mansfield, Ohio, Saturday night.
Probably.
He got home late Saturday night, woke up early, and then took a flight into Atlanta with the pit crew members Sunday morning. So it was great running into him again, getting to talk to him. And then we got to the race and got up to the seats, and more than enough time to enjoy a pretty nice night, except for the end of the night.
Yeah, I have to say this was our 5th trip to Atlanta Motor Speedway. We did have the opportunity to at least see one race on the old configuration. I think Ryan got a top 5. That's when the 2 Busch brothers battled at the end of that race, and Chastain was driving for Ganassi and conveniently kind of caught in the way and kind of helped Kurt Busch to a victory there. So we got to see it on the old configuration. The track actually fell apart at a point in that race, and they had to make repairs on the front stretch. It took about a half hour to fix. So that was the last race on the old configuration. So this was our 4th now there on the new configuration. Hands down, the best racing that we've seen. There's definitely lots of elements, including the threat of weather, moving it to nighttime, the temperatures, that kind of thing, that definitely played into the reason why the racing was so good. But yeah, such a great weekend. We went there for the Xfinity Series race as well. I got to see an interesting finish there where if anybody knows anything about Colleague Racing, that they are usually one of the best teams, almost like the way that the Penske teammates work on plate races or super speedway races as well. They always help each other. They always push each other to the win. And that didn't happen this time. So I think Matt Colleague probably had an interesting meeting. I think they have their meetings on Tuesday. So probably this morning, they probably had a fun meeting with the Xfinity drivers and Justin Haley, who didn't push his teammate to the win there on Saturday night. But it was a great race. The weather held out. I know there's the talk on NASCAR Talk Radio. Most of the week so far has been lots of positive things about the races, but then also a lot of fans that called in that were kind of upset with it being a night race. I have to tell you, as somebody that was there, thank you for making it a night race.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked it just as fine as if it was a Saturday night race, but Sunday night race, I always kind of make those plans to take Mondays off regardless anyway as a rain date when I go to races, just in case, so we don't miss anything. But temperature wise, made a huge difference sitting out in the grandstands after the sun went down and watching that race. Because again, as somebody that was there last summer for this race, that watched it in the middle of the afternoon in the heat, we had to take plenty of breaks from just sitting in our seats to maybe survive that one. And again, I think it contributed to the great racing, the fact that they ran this race at night. And cars, especially speedway races and on a track like this where it's a mile and a half and things are whipping around so quickly, cars look great under the lights and in that style of racing.
The grip is what changed. The temperature goes down and the grip changes, and grip level, will cause it two things. If it's really sketchy, then yeah, you're going to have guys sliding around and maybe somebody takes advantage of it. But you've got a little bit of grip, just a little bit, and guys can run in different areas, and all of a sudden you've got some passing or some chances to pass and some drafting side by side, trying to hold somebody back, arrow things. So yeah, I think the temperature going down, the sun going down, definitely made the racing better. That, and as we'll talk, the weather, the weather made it better too, because I hate to say it, but I mean, racing to the rain and not knowing when the rain is going to be, a lot of guys' hair is on fire all of a sudden. And from lap, halfway would have been lap 130. From that point on, depending on what spotter and crew chief you were listening to, a lot of these guys were trying to figure out how to get up there, and those who had it, we're getting up there. And as we find out, Ryan was definitely one of the cars that had it. Him and the 20 car was able to make some moves by himself too. But when you've got a car that you can make a move by yourself and get around these 2 and 3 wide situations and then just get there, it was somebody, Josh called it a clinic of some sort.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing it a little bit. And it was, I mean, he was putting on a show. The result, because of the weather and because of the accident at the end that caused the caution and everything, changed what the outcome could have been. But it was great to watch, especially live.
Yeah. On the plus side, for the first time, I believe, since the victory in the Coca-Cola 600, we do have a podcast to present to you that's pretty positive and uplifting, and altogether, pretty good race. We had a rough stretch since that win at the Coke 600. Yeah. So why don't we jump?
St. Louis Gateway was pretty good.
Yeah,
Gateway was good, but yeah, after that.
Yeah, not so great. So since it was a pretty decent weekend, let's stop talking, stop chatting, and let's get into that recap that starts on Saturday with a pretty decent run in qualifying.
Yeah, Saturday, no practice, except they had a practice, but that's a little bit different. It's right after qualifying. It's so funny because if you look at NASCAR's website, it said qualifying, but then it said a practice afterward. You're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about practice?
At the track, and I was completely confused. I'm like, qualifying wrapped up, and then I was like, what are we having, a hot lap session right now for because just a couple guys came out, and I was like, like maybe they changed a transmission or whatever, and they're letting them run a few laps, and then after a while, I'm like, oh, I understand what's happening.
Yeah, they were practicing getting on the pit road. Ryan went off 13th for qualifying because of the metric where he finished, and depending on the weather and so forth, you never know. Cloud blows in at the right time. Somebody gets a little more grip, whatever, and you're kind of thinking, well, he goes to the top of the board, and now we got to wait. And you just want him to make the top 10 at that point, because you're like, well, you get to the top 10, then you maybe qualify somewhere closer to the front. But he did. He put it on the pole and it held that the rest of the session, So then he made the top 10, and you get the top 10. 8 Fords are in the top 10, going for the pole. And Amarola, Amarillo by morning. Amarola, he puts a lap down that was really, really an improvement from what he previously did. And I thought, well, Ryan goes last, and if Ryan can improve just a hair, he'll beat it. And this 0.014 was the difference. One, hundredth, not even tenth, but hundredth of a second back. And P2 is a great starting position, though. I mean, you're in the front, so.
And I think they were the only two to really improve on their lap times of that second round, the top 10 there. So. Mm-hmm. I blamed it on myself. We watched qualifying from inside. It's called like the bootlegger's bar. It's kind of the entrance or the exit of turn 4 at Atlanta. We watched it in the shade, had a bunch of TV screens and beverages and that kind of stuff. And I was like debating. I'm like, because I totally believe in superstitions and jinxing things. And I'm like, should I go out there? I want to go out and like film the lap because I wanted to throw it up on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it doesn't matter if I watch it from here or watch it out there. Stepped outside, filmed his lap. And if you watch it on Facebook, I'm filming the whole lap and I swoop back to the pylon, waiting to see him go P1 and he goes P2. And I'm like,
man,
jinx is in. I did it. It's my fault.
Yeah. I think it was, I think maybe the breeze was blowing the wrong direction at one point. That's all. It's not you. But like I said, it was solid. And, we get to Sunday for race day, stages of 60, 160, 260, 8 sets of tires. A fuel run of says 62 to 66, but I think they go a little longer if they can, run in the pack a little bit and so forth. And guys were doing a good job of that. Pit stall 6, open in front of him and the 9 car behind him. We got the 23 and the 20 to the rear of the field. For some adjustments. The 23 actually didn't take qualifying lap. Something happened. They recognized it and didn't hurt the car. Lap 1 here, on the front row, we got the 14 and the 22 of the guys pushing. And that's the one thing about this, is you want to look at who's your pusher if you're in the front. By lap 3, he settled into third, and it kind of like settled out a little bit there. By lap 17, they were kind of running, I want to say single file, because there were a couple guys who tried to duck out here and there and try to make a move. But at lap 17, we get a caution for the 21 car. And it's amazing that he spun out where he spun out on that backstretch and nobody hit him. It was pretty crazy. You thought somebody would have got collected, but everybody got around
lucky. Him. He was lucky here, but he gets, with the way this cycles through and the way they opened pit road, he lost so many laps because they actually pulled him around. One, they had to pull him around slow because the splitters or the underbody of that car's dragging. Mm-hmm. And then they pull him almost to the entrance of pit road and then sit there and let the pit stop cycle through and then pull him onto pit road. I'm like, oh my gosh, that had to have been agony in that car when you know that you didn't really have any damage except for underbody. But he hurt it pretty bad under there.
They were damaged pretty bad, actually. They hit the nose into the wall. And the reason I know they were damaged pretty bad, for some reason, I don't know what I did right. I don't know what I did right or wrong with my scanner. But with my scanner, I had Josh on, and we're listening to Josh most of the time. But anytime there was some dead air especially during pit cycles, I had the 21's radio pop in there, and the crew chief, and listening to him literally tell him what they were trying to do to fix, the splitter and trying to get the car up off the ground and the front end up because it was, it was dragging, and there was so there was enough damage there that he couldn't run it anywhere near the pack. And as you see during the race, he gets lapped a couple times by the pack, so he couldn't even get to the pack and hang in the pack. So we got a restart lap 24 here. The 10 still leading Ryan. Once again, it settles out to about third here. Lap 40, the 22 takes the lead for one lap, but then he gets taken away from him. And Ryan is up to second here by lap 48. At lap 51, the 45 almost wipes out into turn 4 there. Pretty dramatic little swerve, and he gathered it back up, and nobody hit anybody. But lap 58, Ryan takes the lead from Joey, which was awesome. As they were
Enjoyed
working.
that.
They were working well together to some extent. I know people will go crazy about, Joey runs a certain way and Ryan knows what it is. So at certain points, Ryan knows when he has to bail, and this was a point where Ryan had a better run. I think it was the 19 it pushed him at that point, and he got in and around Joey. And then for the next couple of laps, actually Joey bobbles. The 5 car comes around Joey underneath.
Yeah.
The 5 car gets a great run in 3 and 4 on the last lap of the stage.
It was scary. I held my breath.
He passed Ryan. He did pass him, and then Ryan got him back by the line, and literally by 5 feet maybe. But we get a stage win. It's a point.
Third stage win of the year. That brings the playoff point total up to 8, including the 5 that he got with his victory in the Coke 600. Mentioned a little bit about the racing. I was concerned because the first maybe 10 or 15 laps of this race, obviously the start of the race was exciting, everybody side by side, but it pretty much went to single file for about 10 or 15 laps. But that whole time, like Austin Cindric kept trying to make moves. He's one of the guys in the pack that actually kept pulling out a line. I think the 48 a little bit further back. They're at least kind of practicing, if they could make moves on their own. But something clicked in that stage. I mean, it was probably halfway through the stage to all the way to the end. It kept getting back up to where they're running side by side again. And I don't know, I think part of that too, the sun was going down, temperatures started to go down a little bit. Like I said, things got gripped up. Guys got a little bit more confident in the grip level of their cars and the moves that they could make. And the end of that first stage definitely set the tone for what the racing was going to be like the rest of the way through. And I don't usually get too pumped up in the stands, but the way Ryan won that race, I was on my feet, and some fists flying in the air, and I was having a really good time and enjoyed the fact that Joey tried to make a move to get around him, as he usually does. He's not very content to himself usually push teammates to wins or stage wins or anything like that. And for once, it seemed like Ryan actually got the better of him. So it was good to see.
Yeah. Ryan made the right move at the right time, and Joey bobbled his up so much that he lost position. And like I said, the 5 car went all the way around everybody on the low side. We're pitting. You were saying about the crowd around us knew who I was rooting for. We had Josh on the scanners, and we both have a headset on, but we both stood up at the same time. And I don't know if some people saw pictures on social media. I made a Worth Racing shirt because they didn't have one really. And the logo on the back is that big red logo that they have. So anybody behind me knew who I was rooting for. So we go ahead and pit here, 4 tires and fuel. Now, luckily I didn't see much on social media, and I'm glad I didn't, because I really didn't have to argue or want to argue with people the next day. But the reality is, any super speedway race, if they're pitting for fuel, and if they're taking 4 tires, it's longer to fuel the car than it is to put the tires on now. Okay, that's just the way it is. So if they're sitting there waiting, and the jack and whatever went down, the tires or whatever, they're waiting for fuel. And the more fuel you put it in now, the less fuel you have to put in later. And that's the way you do it all the way through the race, so that maybe at the end of the race, you might do a splash and go, and you might only have to be there for 2 seconds where somebody else had to be there for 3 seconds. And that 1 second on pit road is what gets you in front of everybody. So that's why you keep doing it this way. That's why you can't really look at the pit times. I think the pit stop of the race between the Penske cars was the 2 car, and it was 11 and a half seconds.
Yeah.
It wasn't sub 10, and that's because fuel's the most important thing, and everybody was waiting to get their fuel. So they go in first and they come out second. So even on a 12-second stop, they only lost 1 position, which tells you everybody did the same thing. Everybody was waiting on fuel. Some people were willing to gamble a little more with it than others. That's what it comes down to. And lap 67, the 5 car is now going to lead the field to the green here, with Ryan running second. Lap 69, Ryan takes the lead for a lap, which was kind of cool. At lap 80, we get a caution for the 24 and the 7. I think the 23, the 41, the 19, the 78 stay out at this point, and they come in for fuel only, and this only takes 4.75 seconds. Fuel only. At lap 86, we restart. The 23's in the lead, and Ryan's up to sixth with a couple of these cars that stayed out. At lap 92, we did caution for the 5, the 14, the 62 also spins out, and Ryan is in ninth at this point, and they're staying out. So we restart at lap 99. Now, these, when I say Ryan's staying out, others may have pitted at this point, and this is what changes strategy later on. Because some of these ones that have pitted, well, they stayed out. What they've done is flip the field a little bit and gotten themselves some track position that they may or may not lose later on, but it also gets them fuel that makes them able to stay out later on too. So the restart lap 99 here with the 17 and the 31 out front. So that was some strange things to see.
Yeah.
Ryan was up to sixth here, but at lap 101, he's up to fourth. Lap 123, the 43, the 7 tangle. The 1, the 38, the 45, 54 involved, but we're still up to fourth here. We get a restart lap 129 with the 17 on the outside, the 12 on the inside. And, I got like right here, I says racing, it's halfway. We're the halfway point. We're racing to the rain, the lightning. Once again, I'm listening I get 2 or 3 different scanners in there, so I'm hearing some different opinions. Some people think the lightning is going to be the first thing that happens, because if the lightning gets within the 8 miles,
we could see some. We could see some light. I mean, we saw it even before they hit the 130 lap there, and I think there was actually a point during one of those caution breaks. I didn't have great Wi-Fi in my seats, so I let the folks in the Team Blaney Discord know that I probably was going to be there most of the night. But I ran up under the grandstand where Wi-Fi was good, and I just asked. I said, "Hey, are they talking about the weather on the broadcast?" And they said that's all they've been talking about is the weather. And I was like, okay. I'm like we could see it coming, so it was just a matter of time. And I was glad, I was relieved at that point, just as somebody that traveled up there, that they got at least a halfway and not thinking about having the logistics of needing to come back the next day. But the racing from, I would say, lap 99 and beyond, like that's kind of when the switch was flipped. That's when everybody was racing side by side, making moves. And from here on out, especially what you just talked about right here, how they had this restart and they ended up getting halfway, his gloves were off basically the rest of this race.
Now, we with this restart at this point, like I said, some cars had gotten gas and so forth, and it changes some things around. But lap 131, the 2 actually took the lead. Austin had gotten himself up there and led a lap or 2. Ryan settles to third by lap 134. At lap 135, we've got the 6 car taking the lead. So Ryan in the 6 here. Ryan leads the lap at lap 146. Then the 6 takes it back. And then at lap 155, we had a caution for the 48 and the 11. And this pretty much takes us to the stage break. So we get the 6 winning the stage. Ryan's in second. So a first place, a second place, bunch of extra points for the standings. Now, like I said, we're at lap 160, lightning in the distance, talking about rain on the radio. Some guys think it's 10 minutes away. Some people think it's 20 minutes away. But the thing is either way, Ryan and those guys, a bunch of the guys who end up pitting, are only maybe have 10 laps, 10 green flag laps of fuel left. Yep. So
it seemed like a tough decision. I was like, man, how do you pit right now? Because you just mentioned it. We can see the lightning. It's already dark out, but it's even darker in the distance. And you're like, is this going to be, I'm thinking back to, we talked about it last week, to when Justin Haley won it at Daytona on a sequence almost like this, like where, he stays out, everybody else pits, lightning happens, and boom, the race is over. And I'm like, I don't know. Do they just stay out and hope that it doesn't make it another 10 laps? Because like you said, I knew that there was no way they were good on fuel.
No.
But they had to bite the bullet here, and the 6 and the 12 and several others on that same sequence, pretty much same strategy, had to come in and pit to do the same thing.
Yeah, so they do come in and take the 4 tires and fuel here. I have them going in second, coming out 19th for the restart. But like I said, bunch of those other cars were on a different pit strategy. They had more fuel. They were going to be able to go, 30 plus laps, and so that, so we get the restart. Let's see here. Time to have fuel left. Restart lap 165. And with lap 167, the 24 takes the lead. So I think it was the 16 was leading this restart, actually, if I'm not mistaken. So, like I said, within 2 laps, the 24 gets
34, I think, was up there too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But by lap 173, Ryan is up to 14th. The 4-car spins on this lap, no caution, which I'm really impressed with them not calling a caution there. The 4 spun, he didn't hit anybody, everybody got around him, and he went down underneath. He was able to keep the car moving, which was good on his part, kept the caution from happening that way. And within the next couple laps, Ryan goes from 14th to 9th. So he gains 10 spots in 13 laps. So that tells you now, we get a caution at lap 178 for the 23 and the 41 spinning. Now, that's funny is like everybody's like, oh, the rain. I'm not mad at the rain. The rain was coming and we knew it was coming. This caution is what screws things up more than anything else. Because they go from lap 178 to 185. They run 7 laps under caution. If it wasn't a caution, that's probably what we figure, maybe 15 or 20 laps they would have ran in the green. And if they can do that, and Ryan was already 10 spots in 13
the 6
laps.
Was on the move as well, too.
Yeah, the 6 was in front of him. So, and the thing about it is the 4 tires gave him more grip than some of the other guys. He made some 3 wide moves up underneath some guys, and it was go time, and he was coming. And some of the cars up there would have been, he would have went around them like they were standing still if he was given another 10, 15 laps to do it. So yeah, the rain comes and that's what causes the race to end. But the reality is that caution is what keeps Ryan from getting himself top 5 and maybe up in the front,
I like what you said about them kind of holding the flag when Harvick spun. There was actually another incident, I think, coming out of 4 where I think it was like the 8 and the 42 got into the wall and Ryan I think it was at that point, or maybe it was that a little bit earlier on in the race. When I think that was coming toward the end of stage 2, same thing. It was like they kind of held the flag there. There's some smoke up into the air from them hitting the wall, and I thought the caution was going to come out, and that was before the halfway point. But I appreciated the fact that they were trying to get in as many laps as they possibly could. I think if that Harvick spin happens on a sunny day, that's a caution. But I appreciate that they knew what they were up against. They had enough spotters and they had enough eyes on that spin to know not to do it. I was pretty devastated because I knew, I'm like, this is it. Like the lightning was getting too intense. Like it has to be close by at this point. And after maybe about 2 pace laps, you start putting your arms out and you're like, oh man, here it is. We didn't wait. We hurried up and grabbed our, and we've got stuff. We've got wet weather gear and stuff. Yeah. But we grabbed our backpacks and we headed underneath, and you guys came down and met us actually behind our section. And I think it was maybe 10 minutes later that they called the race. It was quick. It was real quick.
But the rain was going to be the rest of the night. So they knew what they were doing with that too. And
can confirm, as somebody that stayed at a hotel in the area, it did rain and kind of keep raining. So it was a pretty big sell. I mean, that's when we said we could feel the raindrops. There's a couple of times they flashed the radar up on the jumbotrons at the track, and you could see how big of a storm was coming. So they're, like you said, as soon as you felt the raindrops, you just headed for cover because this was going to be over. One thing we chatted about briefly under the stands was like, well, I don't know, maybe they'll hold out, because you brought up the good fact that, the West Coast audience is still a pretty decent time for them to keep watching the race. But unfortunately, they had to call the race.
Even I said it then, though, too. It all depends on how quick it was going to stop, and it wasn't going to stop.
Yeah.
If we would have got a shower that lasted 10, 15 minutes and they could get back out there and it only takes maybe a half hour to dry the track, that's one thing. But it was going to rain. It was going to rain for another hour or two. And, they made the right decision.
The other thing I can report is the fact that we left Monday morning to drive back home to Florida. Stayed again in the Atlanta area, and it rained all morning. It rained probably all the way till noon or so. So if they were going to restart that race, it probably wouldn't have been until, I don't know. I think it rained still a majority of the day Monday too. So there wasn't really a good shot for them to get it in. Plus, they weren't gonna postpone to Monday. They were already past halfway. That's kind of the key. So
yeah, once you're there. So yeah, Ryan finishes ninth. The 24 wins. Really solid day. Like I said, it would have been nice to see what another 20 laps of green flag racing would have done. I think they would have probably got themselves into the top 5 pretty easily. And who knows, maybe him and Brad would have been battling for the win.
Tons of Worth employees at the racetrack. They had some activation there. They had a whole hospitality area over there, kind of near our section. It was kind of great to see all the Red Worth shirts and stuff, people out at the track supporting it. So I was hoping Ryan was going to be able to give them a good show. I wanted to mention some stats for you that Team Penske put up about this day. That was a pretty dominant day. That just didn't end up in the victory. So Ryan had the best driver rating of the day at 120.3. He had the best average running position at 4.76. And you have to remember, there's a couple of times there when they pitted and they got stuck back in traffic too. So that kind of tells you how quickly he was able to move up through that traffic whenever he was kind of presented with that obstacle. So an average running position of 4.76. And talking about the speed that Jonathan Hassler and the engineers and everybody on the 12 team brought this weekend, fastest in overall green flag speed at 181.067 miles per hour. He had a rocket. He had an absolute rocket under him, just shy of the pole. Maybe like you said, maybe it was a stray cloud or something that helped Almirola out in that pole run, but just shy of the pole. Probably had a really, almost a guaranteed top 5, assuming there wasn't chaos out front, which honestly, if they did maybe even get to race that last 10 or 15 laps, you had some desperate guys up front, including, the 99, the 16, several other guys that were up there that needed the 34, that needed some victories. And even the 15, Rick Ware racing car, I think finished 7th or something like that with JJ Yaley. So there's a lot of people that aren't used to necessarily running up front that were up front. So there could have been some chaos if that happened. But I think Ryan had the ability to make it through there. And like you said, I think Josh, somebody on the radio, called his driving throughout the day a clinic. And it's amazing. I living near Daytona and kind of in Daytona's backyard, see a lot of the majority of the races that we see are super speedway races. We went to Talladega this year, 12 ran up front. Every time they've been to Atlanta under this new configuration, they run up front. And they used to joke about Earnhardt seeing the air and being so good at that kind of, I don't know, the skill set that Ryan has. I don't know, Dave was always a really great super speedway racer, and we've talked about that on the show before. So something runs in the family, some kind of secret he's been told. And then when you pair it up with a first class spotter in general, but definitely one of the best super speedway spotters in the series with Josh Williams, they can make some magic happen. And, they have a few wins between the 2 Talladegas and the 1 Daytona win. I'm hoping that they can next year add an Atlanta 1.5 super speedway style win to their repertoire going forward.
Yeah, Josh, let's speak to Josh for a second here, because I know we talk about him a lot because he's been on our show, and he will be able to message him and ask him questions sometimes and find out things. But his listening to him on nights like Sunday night are really, really impressive because of the things he's doing. Sure, Ryan uses a rear view mirror camera to see a certain amount of things, but being able to judge the runs, where the runs are coming from, who's doing the things in behind you, and sometimes if you're back in the pack a little bit, what's going on in front of you, because you can't really see more than a car in front of you. Josh is just incredible, giving that amount of data and information and helping make the decisions easier for Ryan, yeah, it was a clinic by both of them, especially that, like I said, that restart where he gains 10 spots within about 13 laps. Like I said, who knows where they would have been with another 10, 15 green flag laps. I mean, the combination of that, and then really truthfully, the preparation of the car, what Jonathan and and Raymond Fox and Tony Palmer, all the things that they're doing to get that car ready during the week. When they show up, it is incredibly fast. I mean, look where they qualified at Talladega, and look where they qualified this week. So, kudos to everybody involved. And the result was just we would love to have been a little bit better, but the performance on the night was awesome.
One big thing the drivers were saying all weekend long. Again, this was the fourth race on this configuration, but the track has aged, kind of rapidly. They mentioned that you had to be fast. 12 car was definitely fast. You had to be able to handle. They pointed it out to Daytona before the repave. They said it kind of raced a lot like Daytona before the repave, where you really needed a really good handling car to run up front and make moves. And somehow they hit on that magic setup with the 12 car that they were definitely able to do both. They were able to run near pole speed, have the highest, the fastest speed overall in the race, and handling enough to where he could carve his way back through the traffic whenever he got kind of sent to the back a little bit because of pit strategy. So with this 9th place finish at Atlanta Motor Speedway in the Quaker State 400, the number 12 car moves up to the 7th position in the NASCAR Cup Series driver standings with Brian Blaney, 75 points back from the leader, which is William Byron. Note that that's a 10. He made up 10 points to the lead over last week. I believe he was minus 85 to the leader prior to that. Again, he scored that playoff point by winning stage 1. So he's now up to a total of 8 playoff points. The top 10 of the Cup Series driver standings right now are Byron Truex, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Ryan, Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, and teammate Joey Logano rounds out the top 10. He's 110 points back from the leader. I'm going to hear a lot of talk going forward in this week about William Byron potentially being the championship favorite at this point, and we chatted a little bit about this before we started recording, the fact that it's weird that it feels like, to me, like one of the least dominant seasons of all time, because this was their 4th victory. He's sitting first in the standings. He's 21 points up over Martin Truex Jr. He has 22 or something like that playoff points, but he would actually have an even bigger lead if it wasn't for some penalties that they got for, I think it was messing with the greenhouse area of the car earlier on in the season, that the Hendrick Motorsports decided not to appeal. So he had a 5-point playoff penalty and a 60 or something point like that, just points penalty. So if you brought those back, he'd be at, nearly 30 playoff points. It wouldn't be at 30, but, inching closer to that. Because he has 7 stage wins on the year too, and he would almost be like 80 points over second place or something like that if he had that. So, the 24 car, they'd actually, for one of the first times I've seen, they had a mishap on pit road. I think they had an uncontrolled tire early on in that race that actually sent them back to the back of the pack, and then he gets in that accident. So that was one of the first missteps I've seen from that pit crew. But I think they have the highest average start of the season. They obviously are leading the series with 4 wins. Their pit crew is the fastest on pit road, and they're doing everything that they need to win a championship. The good news is Ryan's not that far behind, and they definitely have a crew and a crew chief and a spotter and a driver that can make a run here. And I've said it the last few weeks as we've gone through a tough stretch, the best thing that we have this year that we didn't have last year is a win in our back pocket. So we're guaranteed spot in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. And as you saw with Joey Logano last year, that 22 team was, they disappeared in the summer, and they just turned things on when it came playoff time, when things mattered. So we always could have that to look forward to for sure.
Yeah. Get to the round of 8, win a race in that round of 8 to get yourself into the 4, and then win the last race. So it's great to have the extra points, because you can point your way into things, but William is probably pretty much guaranteed to get to the round of 8 right now with as many extra points as he's going to start each round with. But win one of those final 4 races, before the final race there, and win the final race. You win a championship. That's what Joey did last year. And, that's definitely something that anybody can do once they're that far.
So we talked about the good, and just like last week, let's talk about the bad, and that's going to have to do with the results we had this past week in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I mentioned that I'll go through my starting lineup here, and there is an opportunity here where I could have moved somebody out of the garage and gained about 40 points, but I didn't make that because the Wi-Fi wasn't too great at my seats, and the racing was so good, I didn't want to leave my seat to run up there to make a fantasy change. So starting lineup, and a lot of this was based on qualifying and what happened there. Started Eric Almirola, who's pole sitter, got me 19 points, unfortunately. Ryan Blaney got me 47 points, which I believe was the highest total on the day for a driver. Chase Briscoe got me 15 points. That didn't work out. Logano got me 27 points. It was okay. The one that hurt me here, I thought, he had a pretty decent run in the Xfinity race, and he's had a solid season for a rookie, but Ty Gibbs, I had him in the starting lineup, only got me 3 points. And this is who I should have swapped in, had Brad Keselowski in the garage, because he's always a threat to win this style of racing. And if I would have moved him up, it would have brought me up a little bit higher, but I don't think it would have done much for me. So left Brad in the garage. So I have some starts for him. I don't know, somewhere along the way that I can use. I had Logano over Byron in the featured matchup. That was wrong. I had Ryan over Chase that was right. I had Brad over Bowman. That was right. I had Ty Gibbs over Bubba Wallace, and that was wrong. So unfortunately for me, it did not work out yet again. Just like a broken record, bad week for fantasy for me. I think I have one top 10 finish on the year in fantasy, and the rest have been 15, 20, 30, and I think this one I'm probably in the 50s. I think I'm 54th or something like that this week in points earned. So what did your lineup look like, and how'd you fare?
Yeah, I set my lineup, I think, while we were recording last week, and I might do the same thing this week. I'm done.
You did. I was surprised. I was like, you wonder if he's going to make any changes after qualifying.
No, I didn't even worry about it. Plus, and then during the race, there's not enough Wi-Fi to make a move if I had to, because I had Joey in the garage, but I had Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace, all guys who ran at or near the front most of the race. As a matter of fact, Byron scores 46 total points. I think Ryan ends up scoring 47 on the race. Ryan was the only one with more points than Byron. I had Logano was the only one I had wrong in the matchups. I had Ryan right, Brad right, I had Bubba right. But it just, with things the way they got shuffled too, kind of hurt things. There's some guys who you wouldn't expect to get a good finish got a good finish, and yeah, it hurt a little bit.
Yeah, so I ended up 59th in points earned at Atlanta. So if I would have moved Brad in, that would have just put me up into the 170s as far as points go, and that would have got me to about 28th. So still wouldn't have been a great week. You ended up finishing in the 38th position at Atlanta with 158 points earned. But let's take a look at our top 10, which is actually going to start with a two-way tie for the 9th position with no hesitation, and Abby NNK with 192 points earned. In 8th, we have Alyssa C with 195. In 7th, we have Zero Schlitz Given, 196. In 6th, we have Matt O with 199 points earned. 5th, Supermod 202. 4th, Christian Dana 205. Every week with Christian Dana, I think they're getting top 5s, top 10s. Good for them. 3rd, Big Burn 206. Fan of the show, a friend of the show, a friend of ours, Joe Bro, 1221, finishes in the 2nd position in points earned with 213, just too shy of the winner this week, which is JD Racing, who is an active member of the Team Blaney Discord chat. So congratulations to them. 215 points earned, and they win this weekend's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Let's scroll over to the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, and it looks like I'm sitting in the 37th position, which I'll take it. Usually I'm in the 40s. So Team Blaney host Adam, 3,346 points. And let's take a look at the top 10, where slowly but surely you are slipping, but you're still in the top 10. 10th position, Mez 12, 3,551 points. 9th, Alyssa C, 3,574. 8th, Blaring Idiots, 3,614. 7th, Eric D, 15, 3,620. 6th, Penske Fan 24, 3,627. In fifth, no hesitation, 3,638. In third, in a tie, we have Go Larson and Christian Dana, 3,655. In second, we have Blaney's Daisy at 3,684. And pulling away a little bit, once again, in the first position, we have Factory of Sadness 6 with 3,743 points, and that gets them the overall lead in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. So, yeah, things could be better, and I don't think I'm ever going to have a positive fantasy report until we get to the playoffs, because that's when I heat up. I heat up in the playoffs.
Right. He resets it at the playoffs. Here's a cool thing. I've just realized it because I'm looking at setting my lineup already. The matchups are already set for next week. You got Byron versus Elliott, Kyle Busch versus Hamlin, Chastain versus Logano, and Reddick versus Truex. So you could already start thinking about your picks there. I'm already putting my lineup together literally while we're talking. I am. Heck with it. Because I've only got certain usages left too. Like, but I'm putting Chase Elliott in the lineup.
So while you get your lineup set together, I'm going to give the folks the NASCAR on TV report for New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Just give you some time, and then I'll let you give your lineup after I give that TV report. So starting off this Saturday, July 15th at New Hampshire, 3 p.m. Eastern time, you have the NASCAR Xfinity Series and Better Health 200 at noon. So actually I should have said that first. At noon, you actually have the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at New Hampshire. You can catch both of those things on USA. So again, the Cup Series practice and qualifying on Saturday at noon, and then at 3 p.m. Eastern time, you have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at New Hampshire, both of those on the USA Network. And then on Sunday, you have the big show, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Crayon 301 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway on USA. And for the last few days, I've been thinking that this was a race that was like sponsored by Crayola or something like that, and that is incorrect. Crayon is a totally different type of company, and I still don't fully understand what it is. But I have some jokes with some friends that live in different parts of the country, and people say crayon a little bit different. I say crayon, like a Crayola crayon. There's some people that say crayons. I don't know. So it could be the Crayon 3.0 run for some people out there. So, so did I give you enough time to get your fantasy lineup for New Hampshire set?
I already had it set before you did that.
I wanted you to second guess yourself. I wanted you to make some tweaks while we were going.
No, I made my bold statement already. Chase Elliott's in the lineup. I only have one usage of Kyle Larson left, so I'm going to throw him up in there. Christopher Bell, I've still got some use there. I'm going to throw him up in there. Let's get Truex up there. He's really good. Chastain, and I got Logano in the garage. Maybe I'll change the garage out after qualifying. Let's see. But like I said, I'm out of usage on a couple of different people, Ryan included. So, but they got the matchups at Byron and Elliott. And I'm going all in with Elliott this weekend. I think this is the weekend Chase Elliott actually freaking wins. I hate to say that, but everybody's looking at all the road courses. I think they get it done now. They won't even wait for a road course. Denny versus Kyle is the next matchup. And I think that I think Kyle Busch, they've
been running up front almost every week.
Been halfway decent. They find their way up there, but I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors sometimes or strategy,
He's an incredible crew chief for sure.
Yes, he does. Chastain and Logano is the next matchup. And I think that the Trackhouse found their speed back again. And then it's Truex and Tyler Reddick. And I think the guys with experience do well at New Hampshire, guys who've been there a lot. So, that's what I'm looking at. I really do. I have a feeling that for some reason that Chase Elliott just shows up this week. His teammates are driving near the front or winning races, and he needs to do something in the next 7 weeks. And this, I think, before they even get to Watkins Glen or Indianapolis. I think he does it this week.
I would not be surprised to see the 9 car. At some point, they do need to flip the switch. They haven't. I think I was listening to someone on Sirius XM giving some stats about him since he's come back this year, and they've scored little to no stage points. They have some decent finishes out there. I think he still has an average finish that's around 14th or 15th, something like that. So they're not finishing terribly, but he is getting to that point now where it's going to get really, really tough to try to point his way into the playoffs. And I don't think he's going to have to lean on that anyway. We're talking about a former champion of the sport here who's running in some of the best equipment on the series. So I wouldn't disagree with you thinking that Chase could win this year. But let's talk about Ryan's stats here and his outlook for this race at Loudon. He's made a even 10 starts at this track in New Hampshire. He's led 69 laps total. He has an average start of 10.5, an average finish of 12.8, so not too shabby. 2 top 5s, 4 top 10 finishes in those 10 starts. If we take a look at his last several finishes here, starting in, we'll take a look at 2018 when they went to just running one race a year there. 7th, 4th, 20th, 5th, and 18th. So last 3 races, not too great. It does have that top 5, but a top 5 is splitting a 20th and an 18th place finish. So, but not a bad track for him. I think if I remember when they ran there last year, they just kind of had a ho-hum kind of okay race. They never really were able to run up front too much. And they actually ended up finishing the race a lap down. So that kind of shows you they didn't necessarily have the speed. So I'm going to guess that New Hampshire might be one of those tracks that Ryan and Jonathan have worked on over the off season, because it's somewhere that they can find some improvement at, and see if they can go out there and compete this weekend in the Crayon 301, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday on the USA Network. So do you have any Ryan thoughts on his outlook for the weekend?
Qualifying is going to be key. Like it is every weekend, really. But I don't know. It's like a Loudon. Loudon is a mystery to me. It really is. Sometimes you go there and you just hit on it. You see certain guys who they'll hit on it and they'll just blow everybody away all day long. I think was it Jeff Burton the one time it was like that?
Almost led all the laps. And
so it's one of those things, like they get there, if they've got everything right and the weather's right and the setup is right for the weather, and they're bringing a different tire, but from what I understand, that's not going to make a huge difference in the handling. You're right. Even like Almirola a couple of years ago, I think he won a pole at Nashville a couple of weeks prior, and like they kind of got in the right direction somehow, and he went out and like dominated and won the race in New Hampshire. Yeah. I think that was his last victory a couple of years ago. Yeah. So are that is this? You correct me here. Is this one of the tracks where they're allowed to have wet weather tires?
It is, because it's a mile. It's a mile track. It's relatively flat. That's also why they're going to be testing, I think Monday, Tuesday after this race, they're going to be testing a new, apparently wild concept for the short track package that they're not going to implement, as far as I know, this year, but it's something that they could implement in 2024. So this is one of those tracks. And from what I understand, that Northeast up there is being pounded by rain right now. Right. And there is a potential for rain once again for the 4th straight weekend on the Cup Series. So it is a wet weather tire available racetrack.
Okay, it is. Okay, because it's there's like a 60% chance of rain on Sunday as of right now. So yeah, that was something I thought about. I was like, well, that could change everything too. You do something on Saturday in the dry conditions, and then you got to drive in the wet conditions on Sunday. So also just a note, we've gotten to know the people running the merchandise hauler for Penske there. It's Billy Gilbert? And I was informed that there's going to be autograph signing this week. Now I'm sure there's going to be dates and times on their website or through maybe the New Hampshire Speedway app. But I was told that they're looking at Harrison Burton, Austin Cindric, and Ryan coming to the trailer at some point to do an autograph session this weekend. So take a look out for that too. That's kind of a cool thing. Those are something where a lot of times you got to get a wristband ahead of time, probably, because it can only do so many. So keep an eye out for that if you're going to the track. I know I actually have somebody I work with who is going this weekend. So
awesome. If you see him, tell him you listen to the podcast, because we've got to know them the last couple of weeks because we've been to Nashville, we've been in Atlanta. So
I got him a couple shirts, and it's funny because he says he says, yeah, I'll wear it next weekend. I'll wear it next weekend. I was like, okay, well, yeah, if you see Ryan, let him know, you've met the crazy, podcast guys, I'm sure he'll know who you're talking about, so, that'll be kind of cool. I don't know if they'll be allowed to wear them while they're working the trailer, but, out and about, if you see them out and about at the track, they'll be wearing those big bright yellow shirts with the red writing on them.
Awesome. One last thing that we need to talk about before we call it quits in this episode of the podcast is we should give you an update. We had Leah Reeves on last week from the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, the daughter of Dale Blaney, and she helped us preview the 15th annual Lou Blaney Memorial as the All-Star Circuit of Champions and the BRP Modified Tour went to Sharon Speedway in Hartford, Ohio, for that memorial race that honors the life and legend of Lou Blaney. And she talked about some of the fundraising efforts that they had on tap for the weekend. They had a Blaney Bunch fan club meetup, a little dinner there. We had our roving reporters, Jerry and Kirsten there, who, if you did attend that, you may have come away with some Team Blaney koozies that they passed out to some of the folks that were in attendance at the race. Happy to say, on the fundraising point, we previewed some of the items that they're going to be selling at the silent auction at the memorial race. And I tell you what, I followed up with on some of those things. They had the panel from the car. They had gloves. They had parts of Dave's sprint car. They had some other interesting items there. They had a Daniel Hemrick package and some other things. I thank you to everybody that participated in the bidding for that. It looked to me like the bidding in the auction itself was incredibly successful for the foundation. Raised several thousands of dollars just on the auction itself. Steve and I also, we had Team Blaney on one of the sprint cars, on Dave's sprint car. We had a battling Team Mez over there on Dale's sprint car. In the race itself, both Dave and Dale did qualify for the All-Star feature. Dave won the dash and started on the pole, ended up finishing 5th. Dale raced his way up to the 7th position. So both the Blaneys ended up in the top 10 in the Lou Blaney Memorial. Both are past winners of the race. I think Dave's a 2-time winner. I think Dale's won it once. So they still have some work to do next year, maybe to go and pick up another trophy. But Sunshine, Tyler Courtney, who's been kind of he's been running really successfully this year in the All-Star Series, gets his first ever win in the Lou Blaney Memorial, first ever win at Sharon Speedway altogether. Really great race. Shout out definitely to the track crew. I know Jerry was there on hand and stuck it out, but I think from what I remember, I was at the Xfinity Series race. I was able to watch this race on Flow Racing from my hotel room because there was a rain delay at Sharon as well. Some rain came through the area. The track crew worked incredibly hard to get that thing back into shape, and they were able to get the 15th annual Lou Blaney Memorial off and running. And again, Tyler Courtney wins, Dave and Dale both with top 5 and a top 10 finish respectively. And but also the big thing too, congratulations to Leah, Aaron, Patty, everybody at the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation who had a really successful fundraising weekend, it looks like. And all of that is going to go to the Alzheimer's Association, which is a really important cause for them. So always good to have Leah on. We posted that video. It looked like it got pretty decent views on between Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. So really happy to be able to spread the word on that. And thank you to any of our listeners that tuned in, attended the race, and maybe walked away with some really awesome Blaney memorabilia from that live auction. But Steve, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney, and on Instagram at team.blaney. New this week, you can interact with us on the new social media platform Threads. You find us at team.blaney on Threads. If you followed us on Instagram and you get an account on Threads, you also have the opportunity to just go ahead and click that button where you just follow everybody you already follow on Instagram. Yeah. So I know it's going to take us a little while to get up to, I think we're almost at like 7,000 or 8,000 followers on Twitter. It's going to take a little while for us to get to that mark again. But as Blaney fans start adding us, check us out on Threads. It has a lot of work to do to get some more opportunities, some more options. I'd really like a followers only feed, something like that. But it's been a fun week watching that platform evolve.
Yeah, that it's kind of interesting to watch it. It's kind of like it's Twitter light, right now, because it's not, but if enough people come over from Instagram, and it's easy to do. If you've got Instagram, you go get it, and it just transports everything over from your Instagram over. So it's not hard to do at all. I do want to mention TikTok. I try to do at least one a week. I try to do something cool with the music. What I'd really love to see is not just come and look at the video, but follow the page. Because we need to get to, was it as 1,000 followers? If you get to 1,000 followers, you can do it live.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Right now I think we're just short of 500, and I would love to see it get to 1,000. And then like the next race we go to, we could do a live. That would be awesome. That'd be cool.
You can do live. Really we can go live during a recording. Maybe we could do our fantasy segment live, something like that. Right?
Something like that. Yeah. So let's see if we can do a live as a recording here. I could set up my thing here and and turn it around and figure out a way to get the sound out of it. So yeah, we need to get to 1,000 followers before we can do that. So don't just like the video, see the video, but follow the page. And I'll keep trying to put out more and more content as I can. But to do a live would be totally awesome, because then we can interact with the live. And like I said, show you maybe some behind the scenes, or I've seen different people who do a live right from the racetrack, and that'd be kind of cool too. We go to the merch trailer, do a live from there maybe, or if Patty's got the tent set up, maybe do a live from her tent somewhere too. So if you guys do to check out the TikTok, do it up and follow the page.
Yeah, so that is team.Blaney on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok as well. So Steve said, go find, follow, share, tell your friends, tell your fellow Blaney fans that we're on all the social medias, even YouTube. Check us out there too. Mm-hmm. And finally, definitely. We want to encourage you once again to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney Podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.